Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new episode of Policy Beats. Today, we are joined here with Mr. Yasir Abbas, who is a lawyer based in Gilgit, and he has a robust experience in working with seasoned legislators, senior government officials, and international and regional organizations as well on issues pertaining to international relations, public policy, international law, as well as human rights. How are you, sir?
I'm good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking out the time for this podcast. We hope you also enjoy it equally.
My pleasure.
So, with the issues that we see with Gilgit-Baltistan, right, and I would like jump right into it. Okay, since from the Karachi Agreement till now, we've seen multiple layers of legal issues coming up on the subject of Gilgit-Baltistan. So, for those who may not know, in simplest term, आप अगर हमें बता सकें कि at the core, what exactly is the issue that Pakistan faces when it comes to Gilgit-Baltistan?
Thank you, Javeria. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to basically discuss one of the pertinent issues, which is the constitutional and legal status of Gilgit-Baltistan. I will not bore you with historical developments related to this issue, but to summarize it up, the issue of Gilgit-Baltistan is of constitutional recognition
Right.
and of legal recognition. And to put it simply, आईन पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो भी आपके सूबे हैं उनका ज़िक्र मौजूद है जो आर्टिकल 1 आपका होता है इसमें गिलगित बल्तिस्तान का ज़िक्र मौजूद नहीं है मीनिंग देयर बाय दैट द constitutional status of Gilgit-Baltistan does not exist in the 1993, which is the Constitution of Pakistan. So that is basically the legal and constitutional status of the region.
Right. So उसके ऊपर ही कुछ developments होती हैं. A lot of people tend to question कि for example जो 2009 में आया था order regarding empowerment and self-governance order, right? So what essentially were the loopholes in it जिसकी वजह से हम वो चीज़ pursue नहीं कर सके?
So Javeria, in last 75 years, different modes of governance have been applied in Gilgit-Baltistan. यहाँ पे FCR था गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में फिर एक नॉर्दर्न एरियाज काउंसिल का कॉन्सेप्ट आया गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में फिर एक चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव का कॉन्सेप्ट आया एंड देन इन 2009 हम सूबाई तर्ज हुकूमत की तरफ चले गए जो थ्रू गिलगित बल्तिस्तान गवर्नेंस ऑर्डर 2009 की सूरत में which basically gave the region a sort of an identity where we had our own chief minister, हमारा अपना गवर्नर, हमारा अपना असेंबली था और जो कि है और हमारे पास जिस तरह दिगर सूबे का एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव और एक लीगल सेटअप होता है वो फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में एक्सटेंड हुआ. सो बेसिकली दिस वाज an effort of the federal government to gradually bring in the status of Gilgit-Baltistan in its constitutional ambit.
Right.
I mean, if you would ask me, it was a good step forward. The whole idea of giving it an identity and giving it Subai Tars ka ek nizam. But the journey hasn't concluded yet, which is the ultimate manifestation of the region as one integral constitutional part of Pakistan through a constitutional amendment, not through a presidential order,
Right.
which is what the Governance Order 2009 is, which is what the Governance Order 2018 is.
Right. So since you came up to the 2018 wali cheese, I would also like to then ask you what exactly is the fundamental problem when it comes to giving GB that exact provincial status, right? जिसमें अक्सर we see, I mean, the elephant in the room is always Kashmir when it comes to the issue of providing Gilgit-Baltistan the provincial status. So could you elaborate on what sort of issues that creates for Pakistan?
I think जो एक from last 60 years Gilgit-Baltistan को as a security mindset से देखा गया है. हमेशा से GB has been looked as one integral part of Kashmir dispute, which, I mean, we can, debate on it. But largely state हमेशा इसको as a national security ambit में इसको ज़रूर देखा है, लेकिन from a very security obsessed narrative. तो इस वजह से we have based on our case, which is before the UN, where a plebiscite was supposed to happen, and also like successive resolutions मौजूद थे जिसमें हम peaceful resolutions की तरफ हमें जाना था. तो हमने इस चीज़ को द कश्मीर के साथ क्लब किया, but clubbing the issue with Kashmir wasn't the primary problem.
All right.
It was keeping the region in constitutional limbo, because being part of an issue does not prevent you from granting rights to a region which the state of Pakistan controls. And this has been endorsed by even the Supreme Court's judgment led by Saqib Nisar in 2009. They basically looked into the national security considerations, the political considerations, and they concluded that nothing prevents the state of Pakistan from extending full-blown constitutional rights, to the people of Gilgit-Baltistan.
And so, yet that hasn't happened, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it hasn't. We came close to a breakthrough in early 2021 and 22, but for that constitutional amendment, we needed a two-third majority in the parliament. So unfortunately, due to some political developments, we couldn't go forward towards that.
Taking from what you just said, then make me understand what is the current decree under which, the governance system is, what sort of governance system there is in Gilgit?
Right now, our governance system is rooted in the Governance Order 2018, which is a presidential order through which Gilgit-Baltistan has been given a status, जिसको उर्दू में सूबाई तर्ज हुकूमत का कहा. सूबाई हुकूमत नहीं है, full blown हुकूमत नहीं है, सूबाई तर्ज हुकूमत है, which is different from a full blown province, of course. Now that has given the region a new identity, yes. If you would ask me if that has addressed some of the fundamental issues, I would argue yes. But the larger debate, and given the diverse political awareness that the people of Gilgit-Baltistan have, the youth over there, there is an increased realization that the region is being treated differently.
Right.
And also, unfairly as well.
Okay.
So that is the kind of worldview that is developing over there. Why? Because we don't have representation in the National Assembly. Why? Because we don't have a representation in the Senate of Pakistan. Again, we don't have any representation in the Council of Common Interest, and we don't get any participation in federal entities such as the National Economic Council. We don't have any representation in the National Finance Council, so on. So these are some vital federal organs where representation matters,
right,
because it decides the future of the country, and also at the same time such decisions have bearing on provinces as well. So this lack of representation, I believe, is one of the primary problems which this existing governance system has not addressed.
Right. So जब लोगों की बात करते हैं, it's obviously important to take into account क्या sentiment चल रहा है on ground. Governance issues, so they are prevailing, not just the provinces. It's like a problem right now, a transition that we're going through. Hopefully, it reaches some better end. But make us understand कि जो you mentioned कि there's a mindset developing. Is this a result of current developments, or has this been a prevalent issue? Because again, it's not exactly being treated like a province, and so we understand कि वो status पे ला रहे हैं, और उसकी वजह से I'm assuming कि there's not enough representation coming in within these major federal organs as well. So how are the people then, looking at Pakistan itself, the federal government?
Gilgit बल्तिस्तान का एक पाकिस्तान के हवाले से generally there is a consensus. And I say this often, and I say this wherever I go, that Gilgit-Baltistan by far is the only region which is struggling to be part of Pakistan. At a time when you see, separatist movements, you see where where entities are striving to break away from the federation, it's the only region which is fighting to integrate in the state of Pakistan on equal constitutional footings. ये narrative पिछले 60 साल से ही चल रहा है।
सही।
और जो डिमांड हमेशा से प्रीडोमिनेंटली यही रहा है कि हम गिलगित बल्तिस्तान जो है पाकिस्तान में एक जिस तरह मुल्क के दिगर इकाई है, दिगर फेडरेटिंग यूनिट्स है, उसी तरह हम भी पाकिस्तान में शामिल हो और पाकिस्तान के आइन का हम हिस्सा बने। और ये जर्नी जो है इस हवाले से अक्रॉस गिलगित बल्तिस्तान देयर इज़ अ कंसेंसस। आई मीन नो वन इन जीबी, आई मीन barring few exceptions of course, no one in GB is claiming or demanding Gilgit-Baltistan to be a separate state. No,
Right.
they want Gilgit-Baltistan an equal federating entity within the constitution of Pakistan. So that's something there, and it is there from last 60 years, last 70 years. So the constitutional limbo basically is something that the people take very seriously,
सही।
and nothing less than of a constitutional recognition, be it any order, be it any refined version of any order, it's not going to settle the larger debate. That for as long as there is not a specific inclusion of Gilgit-Baltistan as a province within the constitution of Pakistan, the issue of the issue will persist. People will continue to be apprehensive of any initiative that the state of Pakistan takes.
That makes sense. Also make me understand this, because every time we're talking about, you mentioned that people are happy to be part, they're struggling to be part of Pakistan, right? At the same time, like, there's a certain mindset that prevails, linking it to Kashmir again, that says that if we consider Gilgit-Baltistan to be the sole province means you're giving up on the idea of Kashmir, right? And so herein comes the interplay of IndoPak relations as well. How do you then, what is your take on that?
Frankly, I mean, as a student of law and someone with a keen interest in ideas like right to self-determination and self-administration, I strongly believe that, and I mean, there might be senior people who might have had different positions on this. I think I will be blunt and say that our approach towards the region has been very narrow, and our approach to the whole issue lacks these changing nuances we have seen across the world, that how regions with unique identical nature of dispute have been treated by different countries. The underlying theme is, even if that is part of an issue, nothing stops you from extending those constitutional and legal rights to that region. And let's add that one limitation, that till the resolution of that dispute. So nothing stops you from doing that. But unfortunately, I mean, for God knows what reasons, the security mindset, basically the way of looking at GB hasn't changed in last 60 years. We saw India changing a drastic, changing its stance drastically, and India basically shifted its position from terming the region as a regional dispute to considering it as an integral part with just one constitutional maneuvering. And that's something which we can do, and there's no international legal underpinning, there's
Okay.
no local legal underpinning that prevents us from doing it. UN is not preventing you from doing it. Your constitution is not preventing you from doing it. It's just some sort of reluctance that we, the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, are yet to understand.
All right, so that also makes sense as to why our stance on Kashmir is generally weaker than what when we bring up the issues of abrogation of Article 370, etc. Or do you digress from that?
I think that the India that we see now is thriving on pragmatism and thriving on taking those unpopular decisions. It is no longer buying on uh, pursuing a policy of restraint and a policy of keeping the status quo the way it is. Which I think something we have to take a leaf out of.
Okay.
We have to see that what are our fundamental constitutional problems, not just to do with Kashmir, but to all other issues in the country. And I think that GB, Gilgit-Baltistan from last 70 years, as I mentioned earlier, that the consensus on it is there, and that is based on that security worldview. It hasn't moved on from there. So no one basically questions the rationale which has been used by the state, which I, as a student of law and regional politics, I think that it's preposterous. We have to move on from there.
Right. So, coming back to a little bit of the internal political sphere, how do you see the regional political parties from the Gilgit-Baltistan area as well as other nationalist parties, PMLN, PPP, PTI, etc., coming on a similar page regarding the status of GB?
I think largely there is a consensus. It's just that they are unable to push that narrative in the federal power corridors. As I mentioned, we were close to doing that last year, and there was an across-the-board consensus that something has to be done regarding Gilgit-Baltistan, and where the political parties were on board, where nationalist actors were on board, where our security establishment was on board. So there is a degree of consensus among all the relevant stakeholders. It's just that I think as soon as we will have some sort of political semblance returning to the country, then I think the whole issue of constitutional status of Gilgit-Baltistan will see a shift through an act of parliament or through a constitutional amendment.
All right. So, also moving towards a little bit of the sectarian issues that we get to hear, I think 2012 saw most of the surge when it came to the sectarian conflict, and there has been a recent cleric controversy as well. Could you shed some light on the issues prevailing regarding this sectarian conflict?
Gilgit-Baltistan basically has seen these waves of Shia-Sunni rivalry. That is, as I mentioned earlier, it has a geopolitics involvement as well. But then again, normally it's just Pakistani kind of a religious indoctrination, which basically encourages just the clergy to take a dogmatic positions on the kind of sectarian beliefs that they believe in. So some of those sectarian beliefs are not acceptable to the other parties. So that has been a bone of contention. But again, like I said, yes, in the past those were violent, but I've seen a massive shift in the whole mindset of the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, considering that the region once was not connected with the rest of the world, is now enjoying connectivity. Economic opportunities are there, and also tourism, one of the massive sectors of the region. It is giving people lots of economic opportunities. So there's a general lack of kind of encouragement or kind of an inclinations towards violence. So I don't see sectarian issue one big of a problem. I see that with economic opportunities expanding, with connectivity increasing, people will move on from there. And largely, I see the latest events. Let's just put it this way, that during the heat of a moment, during a discussion, someone said something and it was not acceptable to the other party. and the reaction from the other party was equally problematic. It was one, alleged action of blasphemy, uh, you know, uh, responded with another act of blasphemy.
Unfortunately, that's all it takes to create the ruckus that happens.
Unfortunately,
We've
yes,
seen that,
and
even in the heart of the capital as well, issues pertaining to blasphemy and much more. I'm sorry I interjected you, but on your point of economic opportunities, we understand that CPEC will be, is a major player when it comes to the regional geoeconomics. How do people, pursue that idea?
I mean, frankly, we have been hearing China-Pakistan economic corridor from last, 1 decade or so now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, yes, we saw some sort of infrastructure development over there. We had KKH being expanded and the road to all the way to the China border. But other than that, we are yet to see the significant investment that we have heard and that we have been anticipating from last couple of years. Gilgit has its own, problems with energy being one of the main issues. So it's not industrial as such for now. And the whole idea of industry and the whole idea of massive infrastructure is very new to the region. So yes, the people are really looking forward that what is in the store basically for them through the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So if I have to give a verdict or where do we stand right now, the common man or the government for that matter is yet to receive any benefit or any sort of engagement with regards to China-Pakistan economic corridor.
Well, that's interesting because Gilgit-Baltistan sits at the cusp of the very corridor itself. So, and it should be treated as, one of the focal points for perhaps strengthening Pakistan-China relations as well.
Of course, GB
Even from
is
a tourist standpoint.
from a GB is the only region which gives you a border access, but I mean it's not now just what's happening in GB with regards to China-Pakistan economic corridor. It's just that our border over there is not active from a larger China, Pakistan economic perspective.
What could be the reasons for
And
that?
I mean, there are several, and of course, we had COVID, which basically kept the border shut for almost 2 years, and then the volume of trade, the scale of trade, is not exponential as of yet. And still, the whole idea of CPAC being a corridor which will connect the region, not just Pakistan and China, but it will go beyond Central Asia, etc. It hasn't, seen its kind of manifestation as of yet. So I don't see any massive scale of economic activity which is going on under, CPAC or for that matter, any general trade. I don't see Gilgit-Baltistan missing out anything, at the moment. But with industries unfolding and with other economic initiatives starting, there's a hope that Gilgit-Baltistan will be kept in the loop.
Oh, hopefully that's important. So my conclusive question to you then would be, what sort of opportunity cost does Pakistan face? And I know this may be a sort of a repetition, but if you were to wrap it up and just say like this is the problem, right? These are the opportunity cost of Pakistan accepting GB as a province or not accepting GB as a province. What would that be?
I think if I have to, summarize the whole constitutional debate regarding Gilgit-Baltistan, and I think I will put it very bluntly, our whole approach needs a complete overhaul. The way you are looking at Gilgit-Baltistan is extremely outdated. The way you are looking at the constitutional and legal limitations, they don't make sense. And now the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are fully aware of that. And in the past, there was a knowledge gap, there was an opportunity gap, but the current generation of Gilgit-Baltistan, they can see through your arguments. They can see through, the kind of legal and constitutional rationale which are being thrown, or for that matter, geostrategic rationale for keeping GB the way it is. is not making sense at all. And we have been proven right by India now. By, they took a decision on Kashmir after considering this, the whole Kashmir dispute, a bilateral dispute for almost 60 to 70 years, and with one stroke of a pen,
It's unilateral.
they changed it. So I think our approach needs pragmatism. Our approach needs a respect to the people of the aspirations of the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, because as I mentioned earlier, it's the only region which is struggling to be part of Pakistan. So let's not push them to a point where they might think otherwise.
That makes perfect sense. And I hope policymakers are able to take away the important message from this podcast as well.
Let's hope for the best.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
giving us the time. See you again on another episode of Policy Beats.